Was good. Was good. Oh man, I said I was gonna get up, do this live. Oh, 8 a.m. my time, 11 a.m. your time, or somewhere in between the time. Woo, and I'm here. I'm here. What's good? It's your man, 100 grand. Ross with the rock never stops. The Detroit Pistons get their first loss in 13 games, 14 games. Oh boy. Oh boy. Um, man, there's a whole lot to talk about in this one. A whole lot to talk about. I'm gonna wait a couple minutes before we really dive into it. Give people a chance to slide through. I need to get up early enough so I can do like the whole countdown people be doing. Probably figure out a background. I don't know. Y'all tell me if you want to help me out with that. That's a little bit extra technicalities. I don't even know if I necessarily want to do, but let's just say I do want to dive into this topic because it's fun for me. Even if nobody's here, everyone's just chilling with their family for Thanksgiving. Maybe that's just the situation, but still gonna have fun doing what I do, which is keep it a band, being honest with you, being real. And I had to be real with myself last night. I went through a whole lot of emotions, had a lot of expectations, had a lot of fears going into the last game. A lot of them came true. A lot of what I predicted came true, and it was rough. It was rough to watch. It was rough to see it all unfold. A little bit of lackadaisical defense here, giving up a few extra possessions there, led to momentum by this point that led to a big game by certain individuals that snowballed into a loss for the Detroit Pistons. And that's generally how it goes. Um, and look, these things could happen to any team. And at the same time, it happened to this team for very specific reasons that I don't think were anomalies. The reasons why the Detroit Pistons lost last night were for the same reasons they have been maybe frustrating, a little disappointing. For those of us who could see with the critical lens, even despite the good times of 12 in a row, 13 in a row, we still were like, yeah, but why do we keep doing that? You know what I mean? So we're gonna dive into all of that in this video. But before I do, you all know the drill. You know all the drill. Smash the like button for me. It's a small thing for you, big thing for me and the channel. I understand. Some of us are just scrolling, swiping through. You come across my channel. This is an interactive live. You have an opportunity to ask me questions in the chat. I have an opportunity to read and answer those. Sometimes it gets a little bit busy in the chat, and I don't get to them all. So send me a super chat if you want me to stop and talk about a specific topic, or you just want to show love in this holiday season. Otherwise, I hope all y'all who come through enjoy this live, enjoy this channel. It adds a little sum to your day, adds a little flair, adds a little something for hot topic conversations. Maybe share it with your friend group or your Pistons friend group. You can chop it up there. But let's dive into it. Let's dive into it. These Detroit Pistons. Um, man, we love them. Man, we love them. This is a part of the journey. This is the beginning of something potentially special that really bonds us all to this squad, to this roster, right? Watching Jaden Ivey go through his ups and downs, beginning to show potential, turn a corner, go through adversity, come through it on the other side potentially, and really kind of rekindle that magic. Cade Cunningham, the same thing. Comes in, he's the number one pick in the draft with Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Jonathan Kuminga, Jalen Green, right? Josh Giddey. That was a hell of a draft. And we chose Cade Cunningham first for a reason, for this very reason, because of who we saw that he could potentially be. And he's been all that and more for us. And as a result, we've been able to say, this is our guy. We're building around him for the future. And that's the direction that we're heading in. But a part of that journey is we have to see how this continues to evolve. And as we begin to track this roster, we begin to look at these other guys who are beginning to say, man, this guy's got something special. That guy's got something special. And now, after a bounce back season from a 14 win to a 44 win, this is a season for the first time of expectations. And when I say expectations, not just internal expectations of individual growth and improvement and coming together as a roster. But these are expectations for winning collectively. And when it comes to winning, winning is done as a team. It is as much a collective of individual parts as it is a collective of unified outlook and ways of being and thinking, culture, identity, strategy, schemes, execution, consistency. That's what winning is. Winning many times is a mark of maturity, right? Because you've bought into an understanding that's collectively held of what it means to win. And so there's a collective focus, even amongst individual talents. And I will say, I have to give props to JB Bickerstaff, even though there's going to be some critiques later on, but I have to give him props because there is a collective buy in. There is a collective understanding of what it takes to win in this league. It's been working, right? We won 13 in a row. And at the same time, there are some aspects that must be shoring up if we are to progress, if we are to continue to improve in ways that allow us to sustain this winning. Because this weekend, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, is a hell of a back to back. Going through Florida is not just difficult for Democratic votes, it's now difficult for wins. The Orlando Magic have been playing very well, albeit without Paolo Banchero, who I would say is their most talented player. Their most talented player. But there's a big difference between being the most talented player and the best player. The most best the best player is generally the person who's the most consistent, reliable, reinforcing winning culture, identity, uh, and they're consistently showing up in a way that allows the team to find success. The most talented player, well, that could just be the person who has the collection of skills, physical talents and abilities, and the potential to perform at a high level. So that's the difference there, and I would say that's probably the greatest difference between Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Paulo is clearly by far the most talented, whereas Franz Wagner may just be their best player because of how he plays the game. How he plays the game. So going on this journey with these Detroit Pistons, observing where they've been at all the way from, even before the 14 win season, right? The really hard, the coach that shall not be named season where everybody was uh, really disgusted with what happened. That was a horrible season to sit through, watch this team trudge through, like as Cade Cunningham probably put it best. They were not as bad as their record, and yet we had to walk through that. We had to sit through that, and that was hard. But even before then, observing the progression of this roster with Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey's draft, seeing Duren shoot corner threes as a rookie, then never to see a jump shot really until this season again. This progression of this team has been a long way coming. So what I'm gonna be speaking on today is a little bit about what we've seen all along, what we have seen all along, and what it means for them in this season today to prepare for an Orlando Magic tomorrow. If I'm honest, I think these Pistons may just need a day off. Not a day off in terms of like physical fatigue, but like mental fatigue. Going through a winning streak like that can be pretty exhausting. Suddenly, out of nowhere, you have expectations being heaped upon you that may be more than what you were ready to receive at the time. I said before, they're not as good as the record. They're a really talented team, but they're not as consistent. They're not as reliable. They're not as collectively bought into a style of play, nor do they necessarily have the personnel. They've been up and down, a lot of injuries. And so, despite winning, they aren't really that good because of the holes in their way of playing, in how they move together as a team, the lack of sharing the ball in critical moments, the defensive lapses, the lack of fundamentals in certain aspects of the game, like boxing out for rebounds, communication on defense. All these little things add up. And so I've been saying they're not that good. But yet we still had the expectations because the adjustments we expected to see. We expected to see this team make certain changes that was going to allow them to progress. And they've delayed in some of these changes. But I had to check myself. Yes, I said, man, this is a little baby deer getting their legs, right? They're running and jumping and wow, look how fast I can run and look how high I could jump. But then they stumble and they're like, oh, I'm still figuring these legs out. That's what this team is. Still figuring themselves out. Still figuring themselves out. Let me shout out to the chat real quick. Blackheart 4360. It's good to have you in the chat. Uh Donovan 6248. Yo, what's good? You know, I've always been curious what people's numbers behind their names mean. Blackheart 4360. What does 4360 mean for you? Uh and Donovan, what does 6248 mean for you? I'm curious. You know, some people's numbers might be a street home address. Sometimes it's might be, if it's connected to your social security number, please don't feel free to let us know. But it might be something fun. It might be like a birth date. It might be like a favorite set of numbers. I don't know. Maybe you won the lotto back in the day, right? Want to share it in a super chat. I wouldn't be mad at it. You feel me? Uh, but yeah. So watching this team, it's been a long journey. It's been a long journey, man. Um, I remember when I used to not be the biggest Jaden Ivey fan, which is really interesting because I kind of come full circle on guys. I wasn't the biggest Jaden Ivey fan because of the simple matter that he was having mistakes in certain areas that I was like, bro, you can't make mistakes here. You just can't. You can't dribble the ball off your foot repeatedly, right? You can't keep making the same turnovers repeatedly. You know, oh, that's funny. Donovan, you didn't have to give us all those numbers in. You didn't have to tell me. I said if it's personal, good information, don't tell us. I don't want somebody to be on here and be a hacker and be like, ooh, you know what I mean? But that is kind of cool. Uh, so I wasn't the biggest Jay Navi fan, despite his talent. I loved his talent. I loved his tenaciousness, his ability to get downhill. I always said that he's Russell Westbrook, but he's best utilized off ball, because he doesn't read the game at necessarily a high level. And so, and when I say read the game at a high level, I mean dealing with multiple layers of defensive focus and fluctuation and complex changes on the defensive end while he's trying to initiate offense or play make. Um, when you have that secondary and tertiary defender making plays to try to prevent you from getting downhill or to take away certain options. He's not good at necessarily making those reads. But the reality is, now that I'm really watching it, Cade Cunningham really doesn't do so either. You know, Cade still gets caught up in uh, getting the ball either stolen, knocked away because he gets fatigued and doesn't just stop and pass the ball and trust his teammates. Maybe be a decoy, go set a screen for somebody else, right? If you catch the ball, you don't have to dribble immediately. Maybe develop another play. Maybe tell Duran to post up or Tobias Harris to post up. Like these are the different things that maturity brings. I'm tired. I'm tired. I've played the entire third quarter. 3 minutes to go in the third. I'm tired. We're trying to come back. We're kind of mounting a comeback. You know what? Who hasn't touched the ball in a while? Isaiah Stewart, come here. We're going to run pick and pop for you. I'm going to intentionally drag your defender while keeping mine, and then I'm going to make this pass to you. Go ahead and shoot it. Right? Like these are the things that I would say more matured primary ball handlers make. Right? They use their energy to get other people going, not just themselves. And it really speaks to the nature of the player. And I'm not asking you to become a different player. I don't need you to become Chris Paul, right? If you're Derrick Rose, a scoring lead guard, be a scoring lead guard. Just be good at it, right? Which would be my word of the day. You ain't got to be something different. Remember, you don't have to be perfect to be great. Just be the best you. But you got to accept who you are. And the reality is on this team, Cade is not necessarily a consummate point guard. He's a high level playmaking, scoring guard. He's much more like a Luka Doncic than he is a Chris Paul, right? He's much more Brandon Roy than he was Andre Miller, right? He's far less, I would say, Penny Hardaway, because Penny Hardaway spent multiple years in college fine tuning his point guard play. That's a major difference, right? Like, and this is something that I hope, and I actually do believe. Shout out to LeBron James with the NIL. NIL is going to really save American basketball. If I'm honest, and I might just do a short video on that sometime in the future. NIL, name, image, and likeness for collegiate basketball players, the ability to make money allows players who are talented but still need to develop and have areas where they need to improve of their game, who still have an opportunity to play at a high level in college, provides them more opportunity to get paid and develop to maximize their talent in the long run rather than just coming out early and not be ready. Guys like LeBaron Philon, guys like the point guard over at Auburn, right? Maybe it's like the forward over in Michigan. These guys who have a lot of talent, potential ability, that fringe first round pick, they can continue to develop in college, take care of their families financially, maximize the efforts of their labor. Because I always tell y'all, college basketball is a full time job. It is a full time job. Job. I've talked about in videos, remembering getting up, having to get up at 4 a.m. so you can leave by 5 a.m. to get to the school, to get to the locker, to change, to get taped up for practice at 6 a.m. that starts at 6, that ends at 9 before a 9:15, 9:30 class. And then you finish classes by 1-ish, and then you go back, maybe eat something, take a quick nap, and then you have practice at 3. So you got to get into the locker room by 2 so he can be dressed and taped up and treatment and on the court by 2:45, 3 o'clock. So that by 3 o'clock you're starting practice, which may not end until 5, 5:30, 6 o'clock. Sometimes if you're a young team and you're messing up, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Right. And then you get up and do it again. You may lose a close game that the coach really wanted to win, and now all of a sudden you're practicing after a road game, right? Stuff like that. Like the amount of energy, focus, attention, dedication, it is a profession. It's no longer just a fun thing that you're doing. And so these guys, I'm glad that they're getting paid for it. Now provides the added opportunity for development. And I keep saying that the G League is really just a bunch of NCAA all-star level players, all league, all American players, high level players from around the world. So the best, the cream of the crop, who are still young enough to not have necessarily the responsibilities of needing to be present in a way that the G League really doesn't provide. You can go in the G League and just go hard and still get paid. All that's to say is that the collection of players who are coming through drafts, who are coming to the league now, have an opportunity for far more refinement than years in the past before NIL, which is why you see guys like Ryan Kalkbrenner who come in and look great, right? A Zach Edey staying 4 years. He can come in and contribute immediately. He could be a starting level player immediately instead of guys like Mo Bamba, right? Who shows a lot of potential, but physically was never ready. Really could have used more time. And had he spent more time at, I believe, the University of Texas, he probably could have gotten stronger, refined his offensive game. Guys like Scala BCA, right? So this is just all this to say is that the arc of development for most players coming to the NBA today is improving thanks to NIL. Now, with all that said, this team, we've got a tough weekend. We have a tough weekend. And watching this team over the course of the years, from its inception, the Cade Cunningham draft, Ivy and Duran, Asar and Sasser, Ron and Bulby, um, the additions of Dennis, Tolu, right? Watching this, even Chaz Lanier, watching this team develop, watching this team grow. As much as they have been exciting to see get to this point, and I've been tracking them, I recognize I have to pump my brakes because they're on a different trajectory. And I think that there's some specific things that they can do to help them along. And I'm going to talk about some trade potential opportunities. I'm going to talk about some adjustments in terms of their rotation that I would like to see. I'm going to talk about what their matchups present for them this weekend. But at the end of the day, we have to see it unfold. Let me just start off with where they are today is still a thing of beauty. To win 13 games in a row really speaks to the culture, identity, buy-in, collective effort, and talent of your team. So I want to start with the positive. Ron Holland looks like he's figuring out how to play a part of winning and impact in a major way. This last game against Boston was probably his best game of the season for me. I think he had another really good game early in the season. Shoot, that might have been against Boston too. All this to say is that Ron Holland's been getting better despite his slump. Eventually, he'll figure out his three-point shot again. But like I said before, honestly, I think he could really use time in the G League, if I'm honest with you. I would love for him to get 35, 38 minutes a game in the G League and just ball out. Just ball out. Continue to play the style when it comes to off-ball movement, rebounding, get out in transition, but also have some opportunity for shot creation. That is a very valuable opportunity when you get those reps. You saw Dennis Jenkins. The reason why he can go into a summer league, come into a preseason, and then the regular season, this level of confidence, playing at this level, because you have to remember, in the G League for the past year, 2 years maybe, he was the man. He was that guy. He was him. So he had the opportunity to flex his abilities, to fine tune it, to work on stuff, to recognize that me at my best is this. Contrast that with Marcus Sasser, who stayed with the main club but got sporadic, inconsistent playing time and minimal at that many times. So instead of being down in the G League where you can average, I think Sasser would have averaged like close to 30 points a game in the G League. But I think the level of confidence he would have came into this season with, right? Had he been healthy, even last season, would have been sky high. Would have been sky high because he's just been balling out. You don't go from averaging 30 points a game and all of a sudden they put you in a smaller role and you forget dropping 30 a game, right? That's still very present in your body. But when you have a season like you did with the coach that shall not be named, and then all of a sudden, you get into the next season where you're trying to fit in and become something that you're not necessarily used to being, right? A pass first lead guard instead of a score first. It's your rhythm many times becomes disrupted because you're trying to fit into something else instead of maximizing who you are. And that's something that we've talked about before on this channel too, like being great at you, being great at you and who you are, but you have to accept who you are. No, don't try to be something else. But sometimes when it comes to being a part of a team, you have to try on different parts of need to create opportunities for yourself. And that's really, you just can't forget yourself. You just can't forget who you are. And I don't think he necessarily forgot as much as he didn't get enough repetitions to acclimate his game to this level and enough consistency to show up as himself. And that's just a part of life. That's why sometimes it's good to just move on and find opportunities that best fit you so you can maximize you, right? As much as I would love to see Marcus Sasser get out there, I would really just rather see him get reps, get game time minutes. I would love to see him in Memphis as a starting point guard, as a get buckets, scoring, playmaking, and lastly facilitating point guard, than him get 6 minutes a game and they ask him to facilitate and just make an entry pass and go sit in a corner. Like, that's not gonna earn him a starting spot one day or maximize his earning potential. And it's just sad, but I just want the best for these guys. You feel me? So I think where we are now, I see the progression of this roster. Um, Looking at where we are today, this is where I would say is the major stepping stone. It's just communication. JB Bickerstaff talks about uh, this is a defensive team and that's our focus. And I think it is. But I also think that means that we have to really cement ourselves in what it means to be a defensive team. Like there are certain fundamental principles of defense that you just don't get away from. We have the talented guys who we have at defense, right? Stewart, Asar Thompson, those are elite talents. And every good defensive team has elite talents, right? Tim Duncan was an elite defensive talent, which is why you could have a Tony Parker and a Manu Ginobili, right? Because you had a Timmy behind them. And then you have other guys who maybe are plus defenders, like a Rasho Nesterovic or Sean Elliott, or maybe a Mario Ellie, or maybe a Robert Ory. Maybe not elite. I think Robert Ory was pretty elite defensively, but not everybody will be. Steven Jackson, okay, was able to be above average defenders. And that's like our, Paul Reed, our Dennis Jenkins, our Javante Green. Those are our above average defenders. And then we have our guys who just know where to be and they get us to average and they fit really well next to the other good defenders, Tobias Harris and Duncan Robinson. They're going to tag the rotation guy. They're going to communicate on the back end. They're going to do all the things. And then you got our guys who are going to give a lot of effort to get to average. And that's Cade, that's Ivy, that's Ron Holland, because those guys don't necessarily have the fundamentals. They don't have the buy-in fundamentals, the second nature fundamentals to be consistently an above average defender. So a lot of times, because of the lack of fundamentals, whether it's getting in a stance, whether it's keeping your hands up, whether it's seeing your man in the ball, anticipation, whether it's knowing how to get skinny over screens, even though Ivy did a lot better this past game against the Celtics on the defensive end, even though his shot kind of abandoned him. But is to say the consistency of showing up in those fundamentals, those defensive fundamentals, is what hopefully will progress them to go beyond an average or below average defender, trying to get to average to I'm consistently an average defender that now with my effort and focus, I can get to above average. But that's a big step collectively as a team. If Ron Holland, Jaden Ivey, and Cade Cunningham can do that. And I also add Jalen Duren. But I would say Jalen Duren is a bad defender, who's trying to work his way up to passable with his effort. But there's a lot of factors that have to be in place to help Jalen Duren get to passable. And I think that it's one of those things that, I always tell you guys, I don't come in with the lens of a fan, just a fan. I'm also a fan, but I'm watching from, spending over a decade coaching basketball and getting paid for it. There's a big difference. Some just are just volunteer dads. But I'll put it this way to you: if you've coached consistently for years anywhere, for seasons anywhere, you begin to look at the game very differently because you recognize certain things that you've tried to teach, certain things that you've learned in watching the game from the perspective of someone responsible for helping a team win, right? Who's taken on that accountability to look at parents or look at fans or look at a school, right, and tell them, hey, this is why we're doing well and this is why we're not, trying to vie to keep your job, right? Like there's a different onus of responsibility, which means there's a different level of attention and attentiveness and learning. So your lens for watching the game is different. I also be an athletic trainer and in charge of player development for athletes, let alone basketball players. Some of those professional players were coming from overseas, some were local, Some were guys who were trying to get into the G League. Some were semi-pro. Some were college, high school, etc. And so when you develop athletes, you also get to know and observe how different athletes move and what it takes to develop their game. So the lens that I'm looking at is just a little, there's layers to it. Sometimes I can get embedded in one versus another. And I think my expectations for this team was highly embedded in the coach and the player development. So some of these guys I'm kind of looking at from different lenses. The big shift, as I mentioned a moment ago, is communication. Is you've got to talk. That is the hallmark of any great defense is communication. You have to talk. And the thing is, some guys are not natural talkers. That's just a reality. Asar Thompson is not a natural talker, and yet he's the best defensive talent. Isaiah Stewart is a little bit more of a talker, but he's more of a trash talker. And I would love for Isaiah Stewart to shift his trash talk into team talk, calling out screens and rotations, right? Directing traffic. Drop down, drop down, drop down. Cover that, cover that. I got you, I got you. Right? Left, 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 right, 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 right. Get over that, get over that, get over that. Fight through, fight through, fight through, fight through. Right? We got it. We're in blue, we're in blue. We're in red, we're in red. Meaning either we're pressing up or we're dropping back. Either we're in a zone, matchup zone, right? Watch out for shooters. Watch corner, watch corner. I got the cutter, I got the cutter. I got the rebound. Get out, get out, get out. Go, go, go. Right? Like, I want to see Stu become that. Because somebody has to. And it usually comes from your better defenders. Right now, I feel like Duncan and Tobias do the minimal talking. But I think minimal talking is the norm for most of this team. Instead of the excessive talking, almost conversation. I think the Boston Celtics, when they were at their peak, in terms of like the Paul Pierce, Rajon Rondo, right? They had a whole bunch of talkers. Kevin Garnett was a big talker, communicator on defense. Rajon Rondo was a big communicator. Kendrick Perkins was a big communicator. They also had guys like James Posey on that roster who were big communicators, right? And then you had Doc Rivers and Tom Thibodeau, right? So you had, the minds on the bench. You also had the minds on the court. Whether it's the Detroit Pistons in their championship years, you had Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace, right, who are talkers. Chauncey Billups, who's a talker, right? Like you had guys, you know, um, who are strong communicators, right? The Lindsey Hunters, Corliss Williamson, right? You had these guys who are going to make sure that they're letting everyone know. And because there's like a consistency of communication, now other guys who are less communicators are buying into the communication. And so they are communicating more because that's what the team does. So I think that's probably like the biggest adjustment. That's the biggest step. Just get talking. Just get talking. Know who's where. If you're on the back side, if you're on the back end of the defense, meaning that you're the guy closest to the basket, you have the vantage point of seeing the full court. Whereas if you're on the perimeter, you may not, especially if you're on ball or one pass away. You don't see as much behind you. And so whoever's on the backside has to be a big time communicator. And that's something that needs to be pressed constantly. I would like to see that against the Magic and the Heat, especially this Magic team that's going to move the ball, that's going to have a lot of moving bodies. And the Miami Heat are another team that has a lot of off ball movement. They buy into cutting without the ball. So if you're not communicating, and keep in mind, both those teams are also going to present 3-point shooting big men, which is they have to anticipate off rip. They are going to have their bigs shoot threes because that is a major advantage for teams to get up threes from their center position, knowing that that's an area that we struggle in. But if we're communicating, right, then we begin to play the game differently. So, like, for example, if there's some pick and roll action, we contain the guard coming off the screen from the big. He picks up the ball immediately. Immediately, that guard who is guarding the ball handler should press up. And being aware of where that pick and pop big man is, shades that side to make that pass difficult so that they don't pass to the wide open big man to shoot a three, right? That's how you cover for your big. And you say, we're going to force this ball elsewhere, away from the pick and pop big, so we can minimize the amount of possessions the opposing team center has for shooting threes, right? That's a team concept. That is a buy-in concept and a communication, because Duran and Stu are going to need to communicate and be like, press up, press up, press up. This way they can stay sinking back into the paint and defend the rim and ensure we get the rebound rather than have to close out and leave the paint. And now it's wide open for offensive rebounds. Now, with that, there are certain other smaller things that can be adjusted to outside of the communication, which is probably the number one thing. The number two and number three things is going to be we have to do a better job of boxing out. And I know I keep harping on this, but at the NBA level, man, guys, once you're the team that people are really locked in on, they're going to give significant effort. And it's not just that you can get rebounds like a Duran, right? You can get double digit rebounds. You can get double digit rebounds. It's not always the rebounds you get. Sometimes it's also the rebounds that you secure by boxing out your guy and ensuring he doesn't get it. He doesn't even get a hand on it, right? Off of a free throw, your guy should be negated out of the play. You should remove one guy. In fact, guys like Ben Wallace, Shaq, Rodman, they could take multiple guys out of a defensive play, out of a defensive rebounding play, out of an offensive rebounding opportunity, right? They're boxing out one, and then they read where the shot is going off, and they'll leave that guy and go to the next guy, get a body on them to position themselves for the rebound. I remember Marcus Camby, back University of Massachusetts, Toronto Raptors pickup, played for the Knicks, played for the Nuggets, had a really good career, especially in the second half of his career, where he really focused on studying rebounds, and he would talk about studying rebounds and those angles coming off the rim. Right, a lot of veterans talk about that. It's a big shift when you can control the boards through understanding where the ball is going to come off. It's just a different level of rebounding. Allows you to be effective past your athletic prime. But Marcus Camby would talk about being able to read the ball coming off the rim, and it made him have this jump between being a solid rebounder, getting 10, 11, 12, to all of a sudden now he's getting 15 to 20 rebounds in games. Guys like Andre Drummond study rebounding angles, and so they position themselves where they understand the ball is more than likely to come off, not just standing there and holding an arm out, which Jalen Duren still does. And it's frustrating because it has a ripple effect. The offensive rebound that leads to a kick out to the guy who is ice cold, who gets an open three, who knocks it down, now goes from being ice cold out of the play. And so now our defense is able to get that much more stops because he hadn't been getting open looks. So he's been missing more. So we've been getting more defensive rebounds, getting out in transition. Now that guy just saw a shot go in. So now his shot is dropping more, Derek White. And now all of a sudden, those defensive stops that led to transition opportunities and easy scores on the offensive end are now made shots where now we're taking the ball out from under the basket and then we're getting pressured. Yes, momentum changing. So these are the things that these fundamentals have a ripple effect. See, when you see teams that are winning at a high level, the Denver Nuggets, the Oklahoma City Thunder, right? They do the little things at a high level, which raises their floor, which takes less Herculean efforts at the end of games, right? But unfortunately, I guess like the whole balance of that is most of the guys who have bought into fundamentals are later in their careers, which means they cost more and they're usually older, so they have less energy. It's kind of like the whole, youth is wasted on the young, right? The energized, vibrant physical body uh, also leads to a lot of taking stuff for granted. And then as that athleticism or that energy slips away, you become more attuned to being able to use less energy to maintain the same level of production. So that's when you learn, right? And the older you get, the more you're learning to maintain yourself. All to say is the sooner we start learning these fundamentals and buying into them, the more accelerated this learning curve is going to be so we can take the jump that we need to or that we have the opportunity to. Because I keep saying that these moments you can't take for granted. You don't know when your window for winning is going to come and go, right? Indiana may never get back to the NBA finals. That's a reality. That's a reality. The Pacers got there against the Los Angeles Lakers. No, was it against the Lakers or the Spurs? It was the Lakers. Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. They never got back. They never got back. They thought, okay, we've got Jamal Tinsley. I think it was like Ron Mercer. No, it wasn't Mercer. It was somebody else at shooting guard. But they had Ron Artest, Jermaine O'Neal, right? They had a really good team. Steven Jackson. They thought they were on their way to get back to the finals with Reggie Miller. Something happened, right? The Davis boys, right? Rick Smits, like they had, Jalen Rose. These teams, there was always a point which talented teams thought they just had forever. They were going to have this large window. We talk about this window. And then you see life happen. John Morant with an injury, he's out for a full season. Russell Westbrook gets taken out by Patrick Beverley in the first round of the playoffs, misses that whole series. The following year, Kevin Durant is out with the toe, right? Next thing you know, the year before that was out with the toe, then Russell Westbrook, one of the two. And the next thing you know, there's a trade, right? Like these windows don't stay open. So when you find yourself potentially in the midst of a window, you have to really not take it for granted. Not take it for granted. I don't think this team is taking it for granted. I do think there is a learning curve, and it's happening. Yeah, the Dallas Mavericks, right? You got Luca, you got Kyrie, you got a really good team. Look, for all intents and purposes, Nico Harrison put together one hell of a team around Luca that was able to get to the NBA Finals. PJ Washington, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, those boys. That was a really, really, really good team. Really good team. Uh, Man, they'd probably be even better this year if they had tried to re-sign Quentin Grimes instead of going after Klay Thompson. All it's to say is they had a really good team, and they thought this window was going to be so open. And the NBA was like, "Hey, we need a star in LA because LeBron's getting old, and we're going to expand to Europe and try to get an NBA Europe. So we need a global star here in LA. So let's make this thing happen. We're going to take care of you, Dallas, on the back end." So the ownership told their general managers, the team presidents, make this thing happen, right? And then the narratives, tell you to focus on who they want you to focus on. All this to say is that windows don't last forever. Windows don't last forever. You got to make the most of it. The last thing I would say, well, not the last thing, but I'll say the next thing that they need to work on first is communication on defense. Second is the fundamentals of doing things like boxing out for rebounds, right? Now, they can also do a better job of closing out on threes, but I just think Boston just shot lights out. They were hitting an absurd amount of threes that were well beyond the 3-point arc. That's just like, even with a hand in their face, just like, damn, Josh Minot hit two with someone closing out on him. What's his name? Hauser hit one. Shireman hit a few with the closeout. Derek White hitting well beyond the 3-point line with the guy in his face. He started off getting an open one, but then he built that momentum. Jaylen Brown hit a bunch with a hand in his face. Like they just knocked down threes. They shot at almost 47%. Almost half of their shots. I want to say it was like 42 out of 87 shots were threes. Something like that. Out of 86 shots, 42 out of 86 shots were threes, and they shot 47% from three. Like they just shot lights out, and we stayed in this game. So we probably should have won this game. It was just kind of a fluke, and it happens. The last part that I would like to see: communication, boxing out, The last part is the rotations. I think something that I've recognized about winning teams is that they double down on their culture. They double down on their culture over and over, whether it's the Golden State Warriors, whether it's the Denver Nuggets, whether it's the Oklahoma City Thunder, whether it's now the Houston Rockets. The only guys they bring in are the guys that exemplify who they are trying to be day in and day out. Everyone in Oklahoma City plays defense. Everyone, top down. And the one guy that didn't, it didn't matter how talented he was, they wouldn't play him over guys who gave them more of what they're trying to be and do, which is why they played Case and Wallace over Josh Giddey. It's why they got Josh Giddey out of there for Alex Caruso. Alex Caruso is not a better offensive talent than Josh Giddey. Neither is Case and Wallace. But they brought more of what this team identified as. So they gave the minutes to them. Now they continue to build up their value, Josh Giddey's value, but then as soon as they can make a deal, they made the deal. When I look at Karis LeVert, and I hate to keep harping on him because it makes it feel like I'm hating on him. I just don't think he fits what this team is and what they're trying to be. I just don't. I don't think Karis LeVert fits this team. And as a veteran, to me, just kind of reminds me of a little bit better version of Tim Hardaway Jr. and maybe Malik Beasley. They serve a need, they serve a purpose. But in light of trying to win, that need and that purpose is diminishing. And the return is more and more diminishing. Because the reality is, I don't need Karis LeVert's playmaking and shot creation. I have Jaden Ivey back now. I have Cade Cunningham. Jalen Duren has taken a step forward. I have these other guys that I would rather see take reps of playmaking and facilitating and shot creation. Even Asar Thompson. I would rather see him even miss shots, right? I want to see Asar Thompson take 8 to 10 shots every single game. I don't want to see Karis LeVert with double-digit shot attempts. Because you're not necessarily a part of who this team's identity is, or I would say long-term trajectory of where they're trying to go. This is supposed to be a defense-first team. That's what we've said we are. That is what JB has affirmed. Trajan Langdon has affirmed. That's Detroit basketball. That's not Karis LeVert. I get there's guys who give great effort. Karis LeVert is a subpar, below average defender who's giving great effort to get to a passable average defender. Someone who's going to get double-digit minutes, potentially over 20 minutes in a game, I need to be an actual defender because that's who we are. You can't say we're a defensive team and you go with offensive players over defensive ones. I don't care if we need spacing. I really don't. And I said this last year when I was kind of really vying for JB to close with Asar Thompson. And once he started closing with Asar Thompson, we saw the difference. That Asar was making plays on the defensive end that was leading to easy offense and allowed us to get back into games that was combined with Cade Cunningham's playmaking and shot creation. Okay, you have the guys that you know you're going to need to close with: Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren. Okay, now you got Asar. Okay, but in that lineup of Duren, Cade, and Ivy, Asar is the only above-average defender. He can only cover so much, which means that you need another guy. Now, maybe it's Tobias Harris right now, who can get to an average, who starts off as an average defender, who's going to make the right plays and be in the right position. He's going to talk. He's going to do the little things that you need. But can he really make the plays? Not really. He's not going to cover the rim. He's not going to get that steal and get in that passing lane. He's not going to blitz, and he gives great effort. Yeah, it does need to be Isaiah Stewart to close, which is why I would rather see us go with our best five in closing out games moving forward, even if we lose, knowing that they're getting the reps and they're learning, rather than going with guys like Karis LeVert. Even I'd rather see Ivy out there instead of Duncan Robinson. Look, I love Duncan. He's played extremely well for us over the stretch, especially since Cade was out. He's played well for us, but he's not a starter. He's not. If you can be targeted on defense. You must be a phenom on offense to justify closing games for a playoff team. You must be a phenom. If you can be targeted offensively, you have to be Stephen Curry. You have to be Nikola Jokic. You have to be Luka Doncic. You know who you can't be? You know who you can't be? It's Austin Reeves. He had to get to average as his floor. And he's a 20 plus point per game scorer. Duncan Robinson is not a 20 plus point per game scorer. When he has a great game, that's 18. That's a great game for him. His average game is going to be 10 to 12. Yeah, Devereaux 87. I agree. I think Ivy will transition into the starting lineup in the coming weeks. I do too. I said last night, I think as his minutes restrictions is lifted, probably at the end of this week, um, he'll get his legs back. Probably, if not by the end of this week, going into December, early on, he'll get that minutes restriction lifted, and he will be moved into the starting lineup. Okay, bet, bet. All this to say is, I need guys in our rotation who are getting the heavy rotation minutes to be embedded in our team culture and identity. I need Dennis Jenkins in our rotation. And I've said it over and over, over and over, over and over. Dennis Jenkins is 100% everything that Detroit basketball is about. Got it out the mud, right? You look at his story, the multiple schools. He might have started off in a D2, D3, or community college. Who knows? But I think Toledo and St. John's or something like that. Um, something like that. DePaul, I don't know. I think DePaul was Paul Reed. But it's to say a bunch of multiple schools transferring, creating opportunities for himself. Then he gets into the NBA, undrafted, G Leaguer, balling out, getting his call up, going back down, summer league, having to play at a high level, right? Grind it out, all the way out the mud to now the point where he's starting for us when he gets his opportunity and he looks great. Not just good, he looks great, much like Ryan Rollins in Milwaukee, which is crazy because right now Ryan Rollins is the best player on Milwaukee's active roster with Giannis and KPJ out of the rotation because they're injured. Dennis Jenkins, I think, is on a similar trajectory. He could be the best player on a team, albeit maybe not a playoff level team, right? But he's played that well. He's that good. And he plays defense. He's a talker, communicates. He moves the ball, trusts his teammates. He's a dog. His competitive fire is like right there with Stu and Cade and Ivy. His energy is infectious. He is Detroit basketball, not Karis LeVert. Karis LeVert is an offensive weapon that if you need it, it's great. But when you don't need it, he doesn't give you much else. He's not getting defensive stops. He's not changing the game on the rebounds. He doesn't play with the level of energy that's infectious, that makes us better. He is a guy, excuse me, something in my eyes. Ugh. Terrible getting something in your eyes when you got glasses on. He's not the guy that you feed off of. He's the guy that you defer to because you don't have enough of what he does. But once you have enough of what he does, he's no longer as valuable, which is why he's bounced around as many teams as he has. I always said, even with Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr., there's a reason why they are journeymen. Teams have a hard time committing to guys whose identity as a player is not necessarily winning basketball. They have attributes, elite attributes that allows them to stay in the NBA. Of course, everyone in the NBA has something elite. That's how you get in. But it's to say, for a team to build around you and keep you as a part of their core, You have to have some winning attributes about you. And usually it has to do with the defensive end in combination with your offensive output. I would rather see Dennis Jenkins in the rotation instead of Karis LeVert. Let me just say that right off top. And if I have to choose out of this bench unit lineup, I'm going with Dennis Jenkins, Jaden Ivey, Ron Holland, Isaiah Stewart. That's my four off the bench. That's what I'm going with because they play Detroit basketball. They play Detroit basketball. That's who they are. And I probably go with Paul Reed in a double big if I need to instead of Karis LeVert. I know it might seem like I'm hating on the man. I'm not. I just want more Detroit basketball. I just want to see more Detroit basketball. I don't want to see a guy who just wants to shoot the ball. And I get it. That's how he earns his playing time. He feels Dennis Jenkins hot on his heels. Ron Holland hot on his heels. And he's a veteran. But you know what? It is what it is. Trajan Langdon, you've got to do better with getting more Detroit basketball guys. That's the reality. That's the reality. That's the reality. Trajan Langdon, that's where you have to do a better job as a front office. And I'm not saying you're doing a bad job, I'm saying a better job. Remember, this is a different scale. We're not evaluating guys on good enoughs or just okay, right? Karis LeVert is an okay acquisition. It's a good. He's an asset. Teams will want him, which means that you can always trade the contract. And he's a good enough player, talented enough player where it's a valuable contract. He's a real asset to teams. But now we need you to get a guy who's a good player, veteran, asset, and also fits your culture, plays defense, right? Because tell me we wouldn't rather have a Quentin Grimes than Karis LeVert, right? That's a reality. I would 10 times more rather have Quentin Grimes than Karis LeVert. Let me just see even what Quentin Grimes resigned for. Let me see what Quentin Grimes resigned in Philly for. Because right now, Karis LeVert is getting 14 million from us, and then 14.8. In Philly, Quentin Grimes is getting 8 million, 8.7 qualifying offer. You telling me we couldn't have offered 15 million? Are you telling me we couldn't have offered 15 million? I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest. I would have rather offered Quentin Grimes 20 million and structured his contract like Duncan Robinson. I would have rather had Quentin Grimes over Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert. Yeah. No, Quentin Grimes, Devereaux, just to clarify that, if I can, to the best of my ability, Quentin Grimes was there in the 14-win season. He didn't want to stay in Detroit because he knew he was playing for a contract extension and he wanted to be a part of winning. When you're in a contract year, when you're on a losing team, it really undermines your value as a player. And so he wanted to leave. That's why we traded him to Dallas for Tim Hardaway Jr., who wasn't even in Dallas's rotation. Let's understand that. He wasn't even in Dallas's rotation coming off that NBA Finals run. He couldn't even see the court in the playoffs. That's how bad, or not bad, that's just where Tim Hardaway Jr. didn't measure up to for them. So we traded Quentin Grimes to Dallas. He played extremely well in Dallas, trying to play for that contract. Ends up in New York. Sorry, not New York, Philly. Came from New York to Detroit to Dallas to Philly. He wants to be a part of winning. After a 44-win season and a dogged, tough first round lost to the Knicks in 6, I think Quentin Grimes would have been willing to come back, especially if we offer him 20 million. If we gave Quentin Grimes 20 million over 3 years, you telling me he's not coming? You telling me Philly is going to match a $20 million contract with Paul George and Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey's max deals? And they have VJ Edgecombe in the draft? And they still got guys like Eric Gordon off the bench? I don't think so. That would have been the feather in the cap for the offseason. That one guy, because he fits your culture. He plays both ends. He's a selfless player. He's a dog. He's a shooter. He even play makes at a high level. Really high basketball IQ and communicator. That's why you can't keep him off the court. Think Josh Hart with a jump shot, a bigger Dante DiVincenzo. He's a guy you want in the playoffs. I would have completely rather had Quentin Grimes over Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert. What I need to see from Trajan Langdon is he goes out and he gets Detroit basketball guys. I like Duncan Robinson because he's coming out of Heat culture. He's at least up here and then here. He's going to do Detroit basketball stuff. That's Heat culture. He's locked in. He knows where to be, what to do. He understands. Even if he makes a mistake, he's the first one to raise his hand. I know exactly what I did wrong. Right? Javonte Green. I know exactly what I did. Yep, I know. Nope, I know. That's my bad. I'm supposed to do this. You ain't even got to tell me. That's what instills trust in coaches. That's why Javonte Green gets crunch time minutes in the second half. Because JB Bickerstaff trusts him. If I'm honest with you, I would rather have less playmaking and more defense and trust for Detroit basketball with Javonte Green over Karis LeVert. Because this team is going to thrive off of defense and toughness, getting out in transition rather than a guy who's able to create his own shot at a high level. I also like Keon Ellis. In Sacramento. That's a great name as well. We see what he's making contractually. Who else would you guys like to see on this roster at the trade deadline? Just throw it in the chat. Keon Ellis is getting $2 million. He's going to be a restricted free agent next year. This one, the black one. Who else would you guys rather see? Because I think Karis LeVert is the trade guy. But here's the reality. I mean, I see the names that you're putting in there. Karis, Bobby Klintman, Marcus Sasser. I see those names. You also have to keep in mind what the contracts actually add up to. Karis LeVert is $14 million. Bobby Klintman is only $2 million. So that gets us up to 16. Marcus Sasser is 2.8. Gets us up to 18. So including Marcus Sasser and Bobby Klintman doesn't necessarily move the needle unless a team really wants them because of their talent. So it depends upon who we're trying to get back. But I will say Dennis Jenkins' ascension makes a lot of guys expendable. I would not be shocked if we don't make a move. Yeah, we would have to include Karis Robinson or Tobias to get who? Who are you pointing at? Ellis would be great for us, facts. Unfortunately, Sasser might be on the move. I would love to see him. I'd love to see Sass and Jenkins in the bench unit. I would too. Um, Considering that Ivy is going to move into the starting lineup sooner than later, probably by the end of the month of December, I think that, and if I'm honest with you, I know Ivy wanted to come back, and he's been a beautiful story to see come back. I think I would have liked to have seen Ivy's conditioning at a level when he returned that he could play 20 minutes a game. I would have liked to have seen Ivy come back after playing in the G League, getting 30 minutes a game, especially after a year off, so that he comes in and we could just put him in the starting lineup rather than coming off the bench. I think it gives us more of a sense of our team and where we're at. All to say is, I think what I would like to see is we go after a player and consolidate some of these guys. I would like to consolidate a Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert, even Javante Green, who I like a lot, who I like a lot, because I think Ron Holland is going to figure it out and he could use some more minutes. And with the starting lineup of Cade, Ivy, Asar, they're going to get the bulk of the backcourt ball handling, shot creation, playmaking minutes, along with Jalen Duren. And they should. And then when you got guys like uh, Dennis Jenkins, Isaiah Stewart, Tobias Harris, you got those guys in the rotation who are also going to get a lot of touches and minutes. I think Javante Green fits more of our culture. Ron Holland fits more of our culture. If we need to get a shooter, if we're going to keep a shooter, let's keep Duncan. The rest of the guys, I like Sasser too. It's a third string guard. Chaz can go into the G League. I even like Wendell Moore. I thought that was a great pickup for us. I could see us retaining Sasser because he doesn't necessarily move the needle unless another team really wants him. Like a team like Memphis might want him. A team like Dallas might want him. A team like, I don't know. There's a lot of teams who could use a point guard, improve point guard play, lead guard play, who might want him. And we might say, okay, I'd be willing to give up Sasser, Karis LeVert for this guy. But unless they're asking for him, I'm not just including him. One, because he's on a rookie scale deal still. 2.8 million, 5 million next year. It's a great deal for a team and the value that he brings. Um, yeah, I think that's the direction I would go. So really what I'm hoping to see, trying to be patient with this team, I want to see the team mature in terms of communication on defense and boxing out. I think that's going to shore up a lot of our defensive lapses and insufficiencies, giving up offensive rebounds, kickouts, kickouts off of the offensive glass. But then also, I want to see our rotation tightened up. I want to see Detroit basketball players. I really don't want to see Karis LeVert out there getting beat on defense or targeted. I really don't like seeing any of our guys being able to be targeted. I don't like us having guys out there that can be targeted. Duncan, I get it, but he's really a bench rotation player. He should be our number 8 guy off the bench, not our number 2 guy in our offense or number 3 guy within our offense. I think Jaden Ivey is going to figure out his three-point shot sooner than later. He's a shooter. That's why he kept shooting. He's supposed to. He could have mixed it up a little bit more, tried to get downhill to the free throw line to get himself going. Uh, but I think he just struggled a bit because he's figuring out how to get his legs under him. Getting back into the NBA routine, play a game, a day off, back to the next game. Okay. Would I trade for PJ Washington or Laurie? I would trade for PJ Washington over Laurie Markkinen easily any day of the week. The contract, PJ Washington is getting half of what Laurie Markkinen is. He's more versatile defensively. He's a better communicator defensively. And he plays more as a glue guy, as a part of a rotation of other talented players. He's played with a LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges in Charlotte. He's played with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving in Dallas, and now Anthony Davis and Kyrie and Cooper Flag. He's used to playing around talent. I think that he would slide into playing amongst Cade and Ivy really easily. I would not at all go for Lauri Markkinen. So what do you like about Deuce's idea of starting Stu and Durant? Well, that wasn't just Deuce's idea. That's been mulled around for a while now. The reality is Isaiah Stewart is the heart and soul of our team. He is the culture holder of our team. That's invaluable. He's also extremely valuable on an open market. He plays like an Onyeka Okongwu, who's like that fringe starter, right? First big off the bench. So he's probably worth 23 to 25 million a year, which means that for us to re-sign Isaiah Stewart eventually and then re-sign Durant this offseason, now you got about at least about 50 plus $1 million tied up into your front court rotation. None of us want to trade Stu. So when I think about that front court rotation at 50 plus $1 million, what you can't do is have them splitting minutes. You can't have 30 million and 20 million getting 24 minutes and 24 minutes a game. They will have to play together eventually. Devro87, yo, I appreciate the love with the super chat coming through. Salute to you, brother. You always try to catch, I always try to catch your lives when I can. Keep up the good work and in depth, the in depth breakdowns, not just stats, is much better content. I appreciate that, man. I really do appreciate that. I often say, I speak from the lens of a coach, training developmental trainer and coach, and a fan. All the above. Um, I definitely think Isaiah Stewart is destined to be our starting power forward alongside Jalen Duren. It just works. And if we can start Isaiah Stewart and Asar Thompson, our two best defenders, in the starting lineup together, I think our defense is transformed. I think our defense is transformed. The only thing is, I just need us to accept that within the offensive system, that Stu, I need you shooting threes and not trying to post up. I need you shooting threes, Stu. I need you shooting a lot of threes. I need you to almost look like Miles Turner. Like, if I'm honest with you, if I'm honest with every single game, there should never be a game like last night where you didn't even attempt a 3-point shot. This is your focus. I see you are improving in self control, not picking up the technicals or the flagrant fouls, right? Stuff like that. I appreciate that. I really do. I think that is a note of progression for you. I don't want to overlook that. And on offense, I need you to shoot more threes. Teams are leaving you open and you're a 40% 3-point shooter. Shoot more threes, bro. You open up the offense. Every three that you knock down opens up the court, takes pressure off of Cade, and it reminds him to buy into the system, which unfortunately Cade needs reminding of. I also need, man, I'll get to this later. I know I don't want to harp so many things that I'm looking for from these Pistons, but they're in that learning curve. They're in that growth curve. I need players to stop deferring to Cade. Look him off. Look him off. That means he's looking at you, asking for the ball. You look back at him and you go, no. And you turn and you pass it to somebody else. We have to start looking him off. We have to communicate that we understand the culture of this team is to share the ball, that it's not all on him, that we're not expecting him to drop 40 for us to have a chance to win. That is not what our identity is going to be. It's another reason why we need Dennis Jenkins, because he's a real point guard who gets us into our offense where he finds other guys. Let's swing the ball into the corner to Ron Holland. Let's run some action over them, or over there where Ron Holland can get a screen by Isaiah Stewart, run a little pick and pop. Maybe he gets downhill, kicks it to the weak side, and now Cade gets an open look from three. Maybe Ron Holland comes off of that screen, drives to the middle. Asar Thompson is backdooring along the baseline. He dumps it off for the dunk. We have offense that we can score without Cade Cunningham dribbling the air out of the ball. The more he does that, the more defenses focus in on him, the less energy and legs he has to knock down open shots or play high level defense. Have you guys noticed when we are sharing the ball, Cade Cunningham is making a whole lot of great defensive plays? Have you all noticed that? I've noticed that. I've noticed that. What I want to see is this team double down in who they say that they are. And that's just a big thing for me, period. If a team says this is what we're about, who we are, and then they're not necessarily reinforcing that by the guys that they bring in. Because remember, I said I love Chaz Lanier as a shooter, as a prospect. I think he's going to be a big time shooter for a long time in the NBA. But who I wanted was Kobe Sanders. I don't know if y'all remember that in the draft. Same Kobe Sanders who's been getting starts for the Los Angeles Clippers. He came out of either Nevada or Colorado. That's who I wanted because he's a versatile 6'8" point forward, right? The glue guy, pass the ball, find other guys, plays a high level of defense, good athlete, right? Like that's the type of person. Selfless, plays within a team concept, leadership, facilitator, captain of his team, primary shot playmaker who also defends and knocks down threes. That's who I was looking for. That's who I wanted. We got to get more ball movement. You're right. Yes, Stu can learn a lot from Tobias Harris. Actually, a guy that I said that I really want to see us go after. Actually two guys. There's actually two guys that I would love for us to pick up, and then we can wrap it up off of this. Um, Two guys that I also like, aside from PJ Washington, would be Kyle Anderson and George Niang. Kyle Anderson and George Niang. One, they're tough. They're selfless, team oriented, great communicators, high basketball IQ, veterans. They check all the boxes of guys who will make all of our young guys better, who will accelerate their development. You know what I need more than a wing? And I know I'm harping on Karis a lot. You know who I need more than a wing? Like Karis LeVert, who's creating for himself consistently. I need a wing who will make sure that Jalen Duren is getting touches. I need a forward who will make sure that Jay Ivey gets a good screen. I need a guard who's going to make sure that Asar Thompson is bringing the ball up and has spacing and is moving and rotating into position to get kickouts and maintaining spaces. I need someone who's going to get into the ear of Ron Holland, make sure he knows where to be. He's a great communicator so that our defense is more efficient. So Jalen Duren is in position. That's what I need more than someone who's just going to score. There's levels to this game of basketball. There's levels. And we get to those levels through having guys who've already been through the levels. And there are some guys who've been through the levels in college, like a Ryan Kalkbrenner. You don't have to remind Ryan Kalkbrenner to box out ever. Ever. Set his feet on screens. That's why he's a starting center for the Charlotte Hornets, despite being a second round pick. You know why? Because he was a 3-time defensive player of the year in his conference in college over at Creighton University. University of Creighton, 1 or 2. Right? Like there are guys who go through those levels of learning and understanding in the NCAA. And by the time they get to the NBA, they've already bought in. But a lot of these guys who are one and done, they didn't get it in the NCAA. That's not where they got it. And so they have to get it here. So it's imperative if you have a bunch of guys who are still learning how to play winning basketball, not just be great talents. Because, you know, Ryan Kalkbrenner also never learned how to, uh, become a high level scorer. I mean, he did have reps, especially his senior year, right? Guys like Maxime Reynaud and, you know, Hanson Young and, uh, there's a lot of guys coming to the league who, cut their teeth in college and learn how to become better scorers in college or overseas. All to say is that not everybody did. Not everybody needs to have the same skill sets, the same abilities, but what you're looking for is balance. And right now, with Cade and Ivy and Durant, we have an imbalance of subpar defenders who are trying to get to consistently raising their floor to an average so that their efforts can get them to above average. Right now, they're below average defenders. We're trying to get to average. We have an imbalance. We got Stu and we got Asar who can kind of balance them out, especially within the starting lineup. But off the bench, okay, we got Dennis. Okay, we got Tobias. Okay, Paul Reed, Javante, Ron. I would say is just barely subpar, but gets to average or above average because of his effort and he's learning, he's growing, right? I talked about that at the beginning of the last live yesterday. But when we're playing Karras all those minutes, and even Duncan all those minutes, alongside of an Ivy and a Cade and a Durant, those lineups cannot be out there. That's not Detroit basketball. Logan D. Uh, Logan Odie. I wanna respond to this comment here. Yeah, JD should get the ball more, but defenses collapse his space because they weren't respecting players on our perimeter. With Ivy coming back, that should open up Duran more. Yes, and yes. And I need Duran to have more reps getting used to the defense collapsing and making the appropriate reads. I need him to get those reps. I need him to get those failures. I need him to take those L's, take it on the chin, and then have to get interviewed about it. Hey, you had 4 turnovers in this game. What happened? And he has to process and remember what the coaches were telling him, what he was supposed to be doing. And then he has to look at his stat sheet and go, oh, damn. Right? I need him to have that responsibility, that onus, not Karis LeVert. Not Karis LeVert. That's not who's supposed to be getting interviewed for not playing up to par for our team to have a chance to win. I want Ivy to have that conversation because that's how you get that individual accountability that, oh, eyes are on me for this thing right here. It's not just a coach telling me, yeah, 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 okay, cool. And you can brush it off, which many times you can do when you're that talented. Throughout high school, you can do that. At the University of Memphis, he could do that. Early on for the Detroit Pistons, his first couple of years, he could do that. But now he should not be able to do that any longer. And you get that accountability through having opportunities for failure that then get reinforced through public criticism, right? The journalistic research and interviews. Hey, haven't we heard that you guys were working on this? Right? We watched in practice, we saw the reps. So we're looking for the translation. Are you aware of this? Are you right? Like these are things that we need to see Duran have to go through. Jaden Ivey have to go through. Cade have to go. Cade, we want you to have to answer why you became so heliocentric and breaking away from the offense and moving the ball. And now all of a sudden you went from 10 shot attempts in the first half to then all of a sudden 15, 16 in the second half. You were 5 of 8 in the first half, 6 for 10 in the first half. And then you're 7 of 18 in the second half. What happened? Those turnovers down the stretch. 2 crucial turnovers down the stretch of the fourth quarter. We've noticed you stop running offense. What's going on? Right? That's how we reinforce this. It doesn't mean that we don't stop shouting them out for having a monster game and scoring over 40, but similar to Jordan used to score over 40. and they weren't making the playoffs or they were knocked out of the first round, right? Like there were things that Jordan had to go through and learn. Come on now. If Jordan could get criticized by the greats around him, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, these greats were literally criticizing one of the GOATs and Michael Jordan. Hey, young fella, you got to learn to pass the ball. You got to learn to include your team. Why shouldn't Cade Cunningham also get the same critique? You're going to get the all-star. You're going to be an all-star. You're going to get the all NBAs. You're going to get the accolades. You're going to get paid. You already got paid. And you're going to hit all your bonuses. It's okay that you get critiqued. We should critique you. Just like our politicians, just like everybody else. Yeah, in Jordan's best statistical years, he was getting bounced in the first round. That's real talk. So I think over the next couple of games, they will get tested. I'm going to do a live in the morning tomorrow. Same time, 8 o'clock. I'll try to do a countdown. I'll try to do like a, you know, 15 minutes before we start. So you have a chance to get in before I get started. So you can see this from the beginning. I can't promise it, but we will start at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. And we'll talk about a preview for the Orlando Magic because they're playing some great basketball right now. They are playing some great basketball. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, Boston won't shoot like that in a series. They won't. And that's part of my outlook for against the Orlando Magic, that they won't shoot that well, though Orlando is shooting really well. And they're moving the ball more, which are two Achilles heels of the Detroit Pistons, covering the three-point line and player movement, because we don't communicate well, which is why we have to focus on communication, right? And securing the defensive board, right? So with Tristan da Silva in the starting lineup alongside Franz Wagner, those are two forwards who move extremely well without the ball, who are also going to shoot up a lot of threes. If we're not communicating, they're going to get a lot of backdoor cuts. They're going to slip to the rim along the baseline. They're going to curl off screen action, get downhill, make the read. If we're not communicating, we're going to get beat a lot. And they're going to get a lot of open look threes, which is going to snowball. Wendell Carter Jr., he can also shoot threes. Jalen Suggs, he'll shoot threes. Desmond Bane, he'll definitely be shooting threes. So they're going to have shooters. Anthony Black is playing better and better basketball. Yeah, Asar Thompson has to quit being Groot out there and say actual words. He has to communicate. But once again, that happens with the repetitions. As he gets more and more minutes, closer to 30 plus minutes, and starts having those interviews, right? He's going to start opening up. Hopefully, there's a coach that's working on that with him as well. Let me just say this. I always like to leave us with a word of the day. This is what the word of the day is going to be. First off, let me shout out to everybody who came through in the chat. Appreciate all of y'all. Juan Harris, Cam 52 113, Gretzky. It's good to see you. Logan Odie, Solo, Rio Shamor. I see a lot of individuals I haven't seen before. Deborah, I've seen you before. It's good to see you. Good to see you. Elliot Novak, I haven't seen you before, but welcome. Appreciate you being here in the chat. NFZ, it's good to see you again, brother. Salute to you. Devro87 with the super chat. Always appreciate that love. Like real talk. See, get to everybody in the chat. Cam, Logan. Okay, I think that's just about D-Boy as well. Appreciate you in the chat. Nacho Nick, haven't seen you before in the chat, but I'm glad to see you today. Salute to you. Appreciate you coming through. Cam is good. And Needler, it's good to see you as well. Bingo, Junior Get the. All right. It's good to see you as well in the chat. Shout out to everybody who came through in the chat today. Really appreciate y'all for real. This is a word of the day. Be great at being you. We've already talked about before. Ain't nobody ever had to be perfect to be great. Now say it like that intentionally. Ain't nobody had to be perfect to be great, because you should think of it as playful, because it should be understood. No one has ever had to be perfect to be great. This ain't a deep message. It's something for you to just accept and acknowledge. No one has ever had to be perfect to be great. No two trees grow the same. Yet every tree plays its part, plays its role, produces in abundance. No one has ever had to be perfect to be great. But your greatness is predicated upon how well you know you, not looking out at others and how you measure up against others. How well you know you, playing to your strengths, showing up your weaknesses and areas of growth, communicating your needs because you're aware of yourself. These are things that are important for your greatness to emerge. You got to know yourself, you got to accept yourself, and you got to bet on yourself. Don't worry about being great. Don't worry about being nobody else but you. You were born in greatness. Embrace it. Embrace it. Bet on you, but accept yourself, flaws and all. Why? Because you don't have to be perfect. You just need to understand yourself. If you know that you get beat on backdoor cuts all the time, accept it. So now you're always looking over your shoulder to make sure you don't get beat on a backdoor cut. You've improved yourself incredibly. Not because all of a sudden you're this great defender who never gets beat, but because you're aware that you get beat. If you got anger issues, don't act like you don't. Acknowledge it. Say, I need to build in some safeguards to make sure I ain't just, wilding out on people. If I know I struggle with this or that, okay, cool. It's all good. It's all good. It's okay. Right? Accept it and build in your safeguards. Accept yourself. Because when you shore up those areas, because you're aware of it and you've accepted it and you can communicate and say, hey, sometimes I struggle with anger. So if you see me step away, you see me need to take a walk, let me take my walk because that's how I deal with my anger. And if you make me stay in a conversation I don't want to be in, then I'm going to be explosive. Right? Because I know myself, I accept myself. So I have my safeguards and I can communicate it to you. I communicate to my friends, to my partner, to my teammates, etc. Right? Isaiah Stewart, right? Great example. I'll be popping off. So coaches, you see me popping off, come, hey, just come and grab me. Tell me we got you, we got you, we got you. And I'm gonna know, okay, just sit down. My team's got me. Otherwise, you know me, I'm probably gonna run up at somebody's face, point the finger, poke them, get a technical, all that stuff, right? Accept yourself. That's how you shore up those areas where you would put yourself in a deficit. And now you can play more into your strengths. Now, what's on full display are your strengths and less those areas of growth and weaknesses. Not because you've gotten rid of them, but because you understand it. Play to your strengths. And you do that through self acceptance. And you can accept yourself because you ain't never had to be perfect to be great. You just have to know yourself and accept yourself. With that said, have an amazing, amazing week. Kids are on fall break. I'm enjoying every moment with my kiddo. I hope you are too if you got kids. If you got family, lean into it. Watch some oldies, laugh hard as hell, give out some deep hugs, and enjoy this time, enjoy this season as much as you can. And if you need support, if you need care, if you're feeling alone, if you don't have the support you need, go call somebody, reach out, take a chance, take a chance, see if someone is available, and ask them clearly, can I come over? Can you come over? Hey, I'm a bit lonely right now. I don't have family around me. Go reach out for support. Be brave. Be brave. Be vulnerable. Accept yourself. If you're in a space of need, you don't have the food you need this season, be honest. Hey, do you know where I can go to? Because that's what maturity is. Self-acceptance and the humility to say, I know where I may need support. So accept yourself. You're already great. Lean into your greatness. And I hope you have a wonderful season. I'll get at y'all tomorrow morning. Remember, 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And I'm out. Peace.